Before we get started with this episode, I do invite you to have a look at the description box. Dr. Judy Morgan has gifted us an amazing discount exclusive to this episode. So if there's anything in her store that calls out to you and your pets, be sure to grab that discount. You can get 50% off your purchase. So don't forget to have a look at that. And now let's get to it. You're good to go?
Good to go.
Excellent. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk to Danielle podcast. I am your host, Danielle C. Baker. And before we get started, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to whichever channel you're listening or watching from. And of course, this is season 4. So I do invite you to have a look at the 3 previous seasons. There may be some topics there that resonate with your reality today. They are timeless. So I do invite you to go have a look. We're going to jump right in today. I have an amazing guest. So this is a topic I've been wanting to bring up because we do talk a lot about the family dynamics and the realities that parents go through. But we're going to extend it today to our fur babies. Anybody who has a pet will understand that they are very much part of our family, and they do play a part with how we raise our children and that. So I have the wonderful Dr. Judy Morgan with me today. She does amazing work with that in educating and raising awareness on what we give our pets, even down to our cleaning products and everything. And if we're careful with our children, we would also want to be careful with our pets. So thank you so much, Judy, for joining me. I'm really excited to have you on.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Great. And before we get started, can you talk to us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I am an integrated veterinarian, which means I combine traditional Western medicine with alternative or complementary therapies, whatever we want to call it. I graduated from vet school in the mid-'80s from the University of Illinois, so I was traditionally trained, practiced Western medicine for about 10 years, and I wasn't very happy. Mm-hmm. And I accidentally took a chiropractic course, and it rocked my world because I was now able to do something that I couldn't do before, which was save a lot of my patients who had mobility problems or back issues or pain that we couldn't address in other ways. And so once I saw how powerful that modality was when added into what I was doing, I started looking for what else is out there, what can I do? And I dabbled in a lot of different things: essential oils, homeopathy, raindrop therapy, color therapy, light therapy, you name it. And then I took my first acupuncture course, and that rocked my world as well. And it was really interesting to have patients come in, particularly with mobility issues, but really with any kind of chronic issue going on, when I would examine them from the chiropractic standpoint of where do we have misalignment and where do we have stiffness or muscle spasms, it would align perfectly with the acupuncture points that needed to be treated. And so that was a great modality to add in. So most of my patients that were getting chiropractic treatments were then also getting acupuncture treatments. Then I started studying herbs and food and everything else that goes into putting our patients back together and getting rid of chronic disease and actually healing the body instead of just treating symptoms all the time. And from that, I practiced for 36 years. I had 2 hospitals in New Jersey, and I retired from clinical practice in 2020, and I now am full-time CEO of Naturally Healthy Pets. And our goal at Naturally Healthy Pets, we have an e-commerce site, but also a Dr. Judy University with courses. And the goal is to empower pet parents to make wise decisions for their pet children and try to keep them healthy, keep them out of the vet office as much as possible for these chronic problems, try to minimize the use of medications, chemicals, and when they have something that pops up, how do we heal it instead of just treating symptoms? And so Naturally Healthy Pets is now, my daughter is the COO, and it's in its 10th year. We're about to celebrate our 10th anniversary. And I speak internationally now. I'm really excited. I'm about to embark on a world tour. And
Um,
I just love educating pet parents and empowering them so that they can have more choices.
yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's such a great story. I love that because it's you just see the progression and you see the benefits coming in. That's is what I like about your work is the holistic approach to it, and especially when it comes to nutrition. So I guess we could just dive in because nutrition has a huge plays a huge part of your pet's health, right? In
Absolutely.
terms of everything. So can you walk us through maybe what we're not seeing as just regular pet parents? Um,
Sure.
we see commercials about certain foods. We see that, 9 out of 10 veterinarians recommend this, and then the whole dry food versus. So let's dive into that and what your thoughts
Sure.
are on the how we should actually be feeding our animals.
Well, it's pretty much aligns with what we are now really looking at in human health. So, food is the foundation of life, whether you're a two-legged animal, four-legged animal, or even animals who swim and slither. Food is what defines our lifestyle and our longevity. And if we put ultra processed food into our body, we know for humans, feeding our children only ultra processed food, adults who only eat ultra processed food. I have a relative who only eats takeout from fast food 3 meals a day. She has so many chronic illnesses. She's just has a million problems. And if we could take those people and change them into back to a whole food, organic, homegrown diet, we would see such huge changes. And so the same thing goes for our pets. When we look at dry food, kibble that comes in the big bags in the grocery store or in the big box stores, that is the equivalent of ultra processed food for people. So it's cooked at high heat. It's not cooked with very good ingredients. So the two biggest sellers of pet food, particularly ultra processed pet food in the world, are Nestle Purina and Mars, two candy companies that make a lot of ultra processed human food. When you make ultra processed food, you have a lot of waste products, a lot of leftovers. They call it upcycled ingredients. Sounds great. Like, oh, we should reuse this stuff. Except that I'm not sure that I want my pet's diet to be based solely on what's leftover waste from the human food industry. So, for instance, the ultra processed food, dry kibble that's extruded, the extrusion process is the same that it was developed by the Kellogg's brothers for breakfast cereal. And it's a very high heat process. And in order to make the kibble stick into a kibble, a little round, dry brown ball, it has to have a certain amount of starch in it. And our cats, in particular, are obligate carnivores. They're little metasauruses. That's what they're supposed to eat. Yet we feed them these highly ultra processed foods that are mostly starch. The most meat that you can put in one of those kibbles is about 30%. Otherwise, it just gunks up the machine and it won't go through. So even our dogs, who they can survive on a vegetarian diet, they can survive on a high carbohydrate diet, but scientifically, they have zero requirements for carbohydrates in their diet. So we even get into this discussion with some of the newer foods that are being advertised that they say, oh, this is human grade. And human grade is so much better because it's not all the waste products. So yay, let's go for that. But a lot of them, what's the most expensive ingredient that would go into a pet food? Meat, the protein. So we have a minimum protein requirement that we have to meet for dogs and cats. How do we meet that protein requirement? Well, if 15% of the diet can be meat and we can get the rest of that protein requirement from something like peas or oats or corn, that's a much cheaper ingredient to put in there. So that's why you see a lot of that. Plus, we need a starch in those foods. So even some of the new human grade, gently cooked foods, which is a huge step forward, they're still very high in carbohydrates. And for my own dogs and for my patients, there's no grains in their diets. There's no legumes or peas. There's no white potatoes. Like, these are all starches that they just don't need. So we need to take a step back and look at what should we be feeding them. And the part of the problem with the waste products that go into that ultra processed food, if we look at the grains in our country, over 60% of them are contaminated with molds. The moldy grain does not go to humans. The moldy grain goes to pet food. And so it's supposed to be tested. And if it's too moldy, it's not supposed to be used. But what they can do is in the large container trucks or in the train cars, they can fumigate them. They seal them up and they fumigate them. It kills the mold. That's great. Now the mold's dead. We're not eating mold. The only problem is when you kill mold, it releases toxins, mold toxins. So like aflatoxin, fumonisin, like there's a lot of things. And those cause liver failure in our pets. And so some of the biggest recalls that we've had in the pet food industry have been for aflatoxins and mold toxins in pet food. So for me, when I'm looking at food for my own pets, whether I'm buying something commercially made or I'm making it myself, I look for two things. One, I'm looking for whole food ingredients. I don't want to see chemical soup in there. So if you look at a cereal box for your kids, on the back, it's going to have, all the vitamins and minerals that are added back in. Well, they're added in because when you do the extrusion process, it's at high heat and it kills a lot of the nutrients. So you get that chemical soup added in. When I formulate diets for animals, I'm looking for how can I get all the nutrients I need from whole foods. And that's really what we should be doing for ourselves too. And our pets do have special requirements for people who want to make their own food. They need a calcium source. So we need to add eggshell or bone meal or raw meaty bones to their diet to give them that calcium source. We need to make sure that we're getting their trace minerals, zinc, iodine, manganese, like where do they come from? So we have courses available for people that want to make their own food. We have free downloads for recipes for people who want to make their own food. We also have a list of pet food companies that we really like that are doing it the right way. And the reason why you see commercials for 9 out of 10 veterinarians recommend this is because big pet food and big pharma pay big money to veterinary schools and for veterinary continuing education. And so if all of your training is coming from someone who has a product to sell, you're probably going to sell that product. I mean, I know when I was in, I guess it was my junior year of vet school, right before we went into senior year, there was a pharmaceutical company called Upjohn. They've been bought and sold a bunch of times since then, so it doesn't exist anymore. But they wined and dined our entire senior class. We all went to Kalamazoo, Michigan, and we were treated to, open bar and dinners and tours of the pharmaceutical plant, which was really educational and kind of cool. But when we got out of school, and I remember the first day on the job, I stood there in the pharmacy in the vet hospital and went, oh yeah, those red and white boxes. I know that company. Yeah, I like them. They gave me free dinners. And so if I had a choice, what was I going to go to? And so we see that same thing. It may be subliminal advertising. A lot of it is not so subliminal. A lot of it is just, here, this is what we want you to sell. So, it happens with pet food. It also happens with big pharma.
Wow. That's a lot. You've given us a lot of gold there, but it's so much bigger than just the food itself I can see how that could be so overwhelming for families, especially if they also have children, because you have to, you got to keep your humans alive, but you also want to keep your fur babies alive.
Exactly. And I will tell you that some of the ingredients that are in these ultra processed food, I mean, I don't know about you, but as a kid, we had dogs. They ate dry kibble. They also ate the most popular dry biscuit that is fed around the world. And I ate quite a few of those. And now I look at the ingredients in those and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so toxic. That was so horrible. I can't believe, and we've had a lot of recalls for dry kibble. They like to scare the veterinary world and the pet food world, ultra processed big people, they like to scare us and say, oh, if you feed raw food or if you feed
Right.
these, fresh foods, they're going to be loaded with bacteria and you're going to poison your family. Well, anybody who eats meat handles contaminated meat in their kitchen. If you go buy poultry from the grocery store, it has a really high chance of carrying some really nasty stuff. And that's why we're told cook it to a certain temperature, clean your counters really well. We can be just that smart with handling raw food for our pets. But these kibbles have actually been recalled more than raw foods for salmonella contamination and have made people sick. So, how many times do you walk into somebody's house and they've got dogs or cats and you see a bowl sitting in the kitchen or the laundry room and it's filled with a bunch of dry food? And then there's toddlers in the house who are over there putting it in their mouth, playing with it. It's just as dangerous. And frankly, our pets should not have free choice feeding to just be grazing on kibble all day. That is absolutely the wrong way for them to eat. If we think about what they would do, I have a bunch of barn cats. They
Right.
catch a mouse, they eat the mouse. They catch a rabbit, they eat the rabbit. They catch a bird, they eat the bird. They don't let it sit there all day and go back and nibble a little bit and come back again. That's how they're meant to eat. They're meant to, and so all of my animals are fed twice a day, my dogs and cats. I feed either raw or gently cooked, complete and balanced meals. It's literally gone in 30 seconds. And that's how they're supposed to eat. They're not supposed to be grazers. And we really see that grazing, particularly in cats that are fed dry food, because it's just not an appropriate food for them.
Yeah, you're so right. So I've had a lot of cats and dogs as well, and it's so true. And just the fact that I'm thinking they go and graze, and of course their saliva and everything is on there, and it just sits there all day at room temperature. So
Yum,
just to
yummy.
have that visual of, oh my goodness, this is just in my house, like breeding
Yeah, and
bacteria.
let me just tell all of your listeners, because I know this is a family podcast for people that have children. Do not let them be sampling the biscuits and the kibble. It like if yeah,
Yeah.
put it somewhere where your kids can't get to it. It's not
Oh
good.
my goodness. Yeah, it gives me a whole other view now. And at my age, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it, but
Listen,
I
I grew up with we always had a couple of dogs. We never had cats when I was a kid, but we always had a couple of dogs. And our way of feeding them, we bought absolutely the worst things, the Gainsburgers that are in the plastic cellophane, and they are literally pressed wheat with sugar and dyes.
yeah,
Horrible, horrible, horrible ingredients. And then when we would have something moldy in the back of the refrigerator, we'd give it to the dogs. And I look back on that and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe they survived.
yeah,
And they got a lot of table scraps, which was actually pretty healthy if you're feeding the right things.
yeah.
So, for people who, anybody who has a family and a bunch of kids, you don't have time to make your own pet food. I get it. So that's why we have a list of companies that make really high quality foods that you can have shipped straight to your door. It's really simple.
I love that. And that was actually one of the questions that I was going to ask you because I love the idea of being able to cook food for the animals. But yeah, realistically, it's if we can barely cook for ourselves, it might not be a reality. But
Exactly.
are
But
there
the other
any,
thing that you can do to really kind of supercharge the bowl if you are feeding kibble, add some fresh ingredients,
Hmm,
blueberries, eggs, mushrooms. Like if you're sauteing mushrooms, if you're sauteing or steaming some green veggies, those are perfect for your pets. Go ahead and put some in the bowl, share them. Canned sardines are just a super nutrient. I don't eat them myself. I have friends that their kids love sardines. I'm like, how do you get your 3-year-old to like sardines? But I think it's just me. But our animals love them and they are just like a superpower food for them. Canned pumpkin is another really, really good superfood for our pets. So the only thing that you really have to avoid is grapes, raisins, and onions. And then
okay,
anything that's unhealthy for us is also unhealthy for them.
right.
Don't
Well,
share your Doritos.
no, right. Even if they're giving you those puppy eyes, don't
Oh
feed them
man,
the
my
Doritos.
cats love Doritos. They would kill for a Dorito.
Right. I was just wondering, and I know there's a list that I will refer to listeners to your website a little bit later on so they can have a list. But is there, off the top of your head, I'm going to put you on the spot for that, but are there ingredients that we can look for on the food that we buy that should automatically be oh no, I'm not getting this for my, is there anything aside from the
Yeah.
chemical soup that that you
Yeah, so I don't like chemical soup. In the
yeah.
dry food, if you see um, meat meal or meat and bone meal, that's not telling you what kind of animal it is. So that means it was a whole bunch of different animals that were boiled down in a
Yeah.
soup. So it could be cow, pig, chicken. If you have a pet that has food allergies, that's never going to work. And those are the lowest quality ingredients. Another ingredient, which is actually included in some supplements that are sold by veterinarians, is animal digest, because that comes from that same vat with a bunch of different animals that were cooked down in a soup to make a meal. Um, and so I don't like to see animal digest. I also don't want to see preservatives. I don't want BHA, BHT, ethoxyquin, BHTQ. Like, we don't want any of those things, and they are allowed in pet food. So if you see that on a label, run the other way. You don't want dyes in the food. Like,
Mhm.
I don't even know why red, well, I do know why red and yellow dyes are put in pet food, blue dyes. It's to please the pet owner. Your dog can't even see those colors.
Yeah,
So
right. So true. Yeah. Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but yeah, that just gave me a visual to say, because when you said dye, it's like, yeah, it's just to make it look aesthetically pleasing. But
yeah,
then I was like, wait a minute, that's only us seeing that. So that doesn't make
right. The
sense
pets
anymore.
don't even care. So the especially for cat foods, but cats have a huge favor for umami. And
Mm.
so palatants, which are things that enhance the taste, are added to the food to make your pet become addicted to it. Just same thing that, happens with fast food for us. There are things in there to make it addictive and make us want to go back and eat more and more and more. So I mean, in my house, we don't allow dry kibble for our cats because it's so inappropriate for their food source. Uh, but I can tell you, we call it kitty crack, because if I were to bring dry kibble in the house, I guarantee 9 cats would dive in, and they've never even been exposed to it.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, I can see that. It's just like the Doritos, right? It's
Yeah,
just you
exactly.
just take the one and you're hooked on it.
Yeah,
Oh
the
my
old
goodness.
saying for the Lay's potato chips, no one can eat just one.
Yeah, that's true. That is so true. And they're not wrong. They're really
Yeah,
not wrong.
right, exactly.
Yeah. There's actually online, there's this whole like chat. There's a whole group of people outside of America or Canada, North America, that they talk about their first experience eating either Cheetos or Doritos because they don't really have, or if they do, it's not the same
Right.
spices that they use or the same chemical dust. So there's a whole other, the whole chat on how addictive that is, and they do call
Yeah.
it the orange crack, or like
Yeah.
it's just it makes perfect sense that that would transfer over to our animals.
Yep.
That's incredible. I could talk to you for a couple of hours just on food, but again, we'll refer the listeners to your website so they can learn more. But I'd like to talk, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about the cleaning products and all of the chemicals that we tend to be very careful, and even natural with plants and things that may harm our animals that we don't think of. We're very careful when it comes to our children, but we need to be mindful of our animals as well. Can you talk a little bit
Yeah.
about how it impacts our fur babies when it comes to
Absolutely.
chemicals?
So the good news is, if you're already being careful with your cleaning supplies because you have children, then you are being kinder to your pets.
Okay.
But in studies that we've looked at, if we test the people in the household, so do urine, hair, blood samples, we might find 100 different cancer-causing chemicals in the people, and we'll find them at a certain level. Then, if we test the dogs in that same household, those levels are going to be 10 to 15 times higher. And if we test the cats, it's going to be about 25 times higher. And so part of that is our pets spend a lot of time on the floor. So you use something to clean your floor, they're laying on it. Cats in particular, by both species, but cats even more so, groom a lot. They're licking themselves, they're getting everything into their system. Plus, they're just absorbing it. So even like the VOCs, chemicals, when you're cooking, if you're using coated pans, those are releasing chemicals into the air that are toxic, and more so for our pets. If you have pet birds, do not keep your birds in the kitchen. It's the old canary in the coal mine. They are
Right.
super sensitive. And if you burn food, for instance, on a coated pan, your bird's probably going to drop dead. So birds should never be housed in the kitchen area. And for our pets, we want to be really sure that we are not using chemicals. So, one of the things that was looked at in this study was like the plug-in air fresheners or
Hmm.
sprays. And
Right.
they looked at the chemicals in just the normal ones and like hundreds of nasty chemicals being emitted from those things. And then they looked at the green or natural ones that are supposed to be healthier. They
Hmm.
released just as many. They're just as bad. Do
Oh,
not
wow.
use plugins. Do not use these sprays. So in my house in the fall, if I want it to smell good, I put a little pan simmering on the stove and I put in a cinnamon stick and some cloves and some ginger. And that's how I'm going to make the house smell good in the winter. I also don't have any carpet in my house because carpet holds horrible odors. It is just a bacteria pit looking for a place to happen. So if you want to be healthier, get rid of carpet. Uh, and be really careful, like all the carpet powders and foams and spray. Terrible, terrible, terrible for our pets. I had one patient highly allergic. He was a rescue dog from the Caribbean, and they
Mhm.
did all the allergy testing for him. And we designed a special diet, and we went through this for weeks, and he just wasn't getting better, and he stunk. And I finally said to the foster mom, like, how many dogs do you have at your house? And she's like, oh, 8. And I said, do they all smell this bad? And she said, no. I said, do you have carpet? Yes. Does your carpet smell this bad? No. I use one of the carpet powders and I sprinkle it on. And I went, light bulb moment. Go
Yeah.
home, steam clean your carpets, get rid of the powder. And within 2 weeks, the dog's skin cleared up. He looked beautiful. So these things can be so toxic. Uh, so, I mean, for me, I'm a huge fan of using like a lemon just a
Hmm.
lemon juice solution or a white vinegar dilute solution for cleaning. We have some essential oil cleaning products on the website. And with our pets, we do have to be careful about how concentrated they are, which oils we're using. Cats are a little more sensitive than dogs. So, for instance, we have an essential oil flea and tick spray. We have a couple different ones, well, actually, quite a few different ones on the website. Some of them are labeled for dogs only, and some are labeled for dogs and cats. So, if you have cats in particular, you don't want to be having potpourri that's scented. You don't want scented candles unless they are specifically labeled as pet safe and not releasing VOCs into the air. Every winter, we get a lot of cats that
Hmm.
die from liver failure because people are burning incense or essential oils, particularly in their bedrooms, and the cats are in a small space and can't get away from it. So, if you're using some sort of air freshener and you notice your pet is trying to get out of the house or go hide in the farthest corner of the house, it's not good for them.
Right. That's incredible. And we don't think about it, but if it's affecting them, it's also affecting us in
Yeah,
some way or
absolutely.
another. So that's wow, that's incredible. And then there's also just like the shampoo. I can only think of like, shampoos that we use on them or
Oh,
all the
same thing for the shampoos. I think there's a blog on the website about what to look for to avoid
yeah.
in shampoos, toothpaste for pets, like any of the commercial products that we're using, what ingredients are going to be bad. And so we have lists of those. And I'm extremely picky with what I use on my own pets just because I've been in this for so long. And frankly, what I use on my own hair is what's on our website for
Oh,
pets
wow.
because it's the cleanest products I can find.
Right. I like that. That's it. That's incredible.
Yeah, I
Um,
use the pet soap bars that we have on the website. I use the shampoos. I use the cleaning agents, like all this stuff that's supposed to be for the pets. And we have farm animals as well. And one of the essential oil flea and tick sprays works really good as a fly spray for our cows.
oh, wow. See, that makes sense to us because that makes sense to me. I mean, because you're being very careful about your pets, what you're putting on them, what they're exposed to, but then we cover ourselves up in chemicals that could also be affecting them. So the fact that you're able to use their product, then
Yeah.
it's even safer that way. You're
Right.
not transferring
Very,
it.
very clean. And with that, be very careful. Like if you use creams on
Right.
yourself and you have a pet who licks you, be very careful, particularly if it's a medicinal cream that has a non-steroidal
Yeah.
anti-inflammatory in it or a hormonal cream can be very, very toxic to our pets. We see those kinds of reports all the time. So, make sure that medications, you have kids, you've got to put stuff away. And it is amazing how our pets can get into trouble without us even trying. Like my cats will get on the counter and knock off a bottle, and then the dog's got it, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And so even those of us who try really hard, every once in a while something goes wrong, and you just
Yeah.
don't want to be at the emergency room with my dog ate this bottle of whatever. It's not a good thing.
Oh, exactly. Oh no, you've given us a lot of gold today, and the golden nuggets there. Before we wrap up, is there anything that maybe we overlooked or something that you think we could pass down as information for the listeners in terms of how they could get started if they feel that, they're hearing this and they're like, oh my goodness, I'm killing my animals. Like how without the guilt, how can we
Yeah.
start this progressively to get into something healthier?
It's exactly how it's step by step. So
Yeah.
you figure out what's one thing I can eliminate, and one thing that I really want to caution people on that's so popular right now and being pushed very hard in the veterinary world is the chemical flea and tick
Hmm.
medication. So either whether it's an oral or a topical that you put on once a month, they are extremely toxic and they are emitted from your pet's body. So when the veterinarian says, "Oh, once it dries, it'll be fine. Your kids can hug them," nope, your kids are getting it. So studies
Oh,
in France have found fipronil, which is a pesticide that we use on our dogs, in the hair of children. It is in all the waterways in Europe.
wow.
And they're saying it's coming from all the dogs having this product being put on them topically. There was a study done where they took 3 dogs. One was given an oral flea and tick preventive. The second one had a topical put on, and the third one had nothing. They put the 3 dogs in a little kid's wading pool just for a few minutes and let the dogs just kind of wander around in the wading pool. And then they tested them afterwards. All 3 dogs had both chemicals in them. So it
Wow.
is emitted from your pets. It is emitted into the environment, and we're finding baby birds dead in nests because they're using the hair from our pets that have these chemicals to build their nests. Like we're destroying our environment. The other thing
Wow.
that we're seeing is we're losing a lot of insects because these are basically insecticides, pesticides. The metabolites are passed out in the stool. And so all the little bugs that break down the stool in the environment, they're all dying.
Wow. This has a
So
huge impact. We don't even think about it, right? It's
huge
just,
environmental impact. So
wow.
on your children, on yourselves, on the animals around you. So be very vigilant. And for me, I won't use any of those chemicals on my pets. We have a great blog on natural parasite prevention. There's so many, and sometimes you have to layer it on. I mean, I live in the South, so it's hot. It gets cold for about a month in the winter, but fleas and ticks are always around, flies, there's just bugs. But we manage very well using natural products. And so I would really push for that. So as far as getting started, you could start handing out some fresh food.
Mm.
Even if you're feeding an ultra processed food, just start adding some little toppers to it. See what they like with it. My dogs will sit and eat a salad, but not everybody's dog will do that. Don't put any dressing on it. Most of them are terrible. Although you could put olive oil on it, that would be fine.
Okay.
So just start adding a little bit of fresh food to the bowl. Start reading labels and seeing what's in there, and see if you can kind of step up the game a little bit. And when you're reading labels, the terms natural and holistic have no meaning. So
Yeah.
just because it says it's natural or holistic, it doesn't mean it is. So if you can find things that are organic, that's great. It's going to be more expensive, but ideally, moving to whole food, fresh food, gently cooked or raw would be better. And if you are using those types of foods, you're going to be storing them in the refrigerator or the freezer, they should be warmed up to room temperature when you feed them. Don't feed them cold. It's very
Oh,
bad for digestion. Same for us. We should never have put ice cubes in our drinks.
yeah, so true. I know. Oh, that's good advice. And I like the fact because if we're going to feed our pets table scraps anyway,
Yeah.
you might as well go with, selecting the right
Yes. Yeah.
food
Like the
to
one
pass
thing
on.
you don't want to give, you never want to give them cooked bones, and you
Right.
never want to give them the grease drippings like bacon drippings or, after roasting a chicken, because that's going to cause pancreatitis. Cooked fats are very, very bad.
Okay.
So that's not what you want to use. But if you're baking a chicken breast and you've got, a little bit of extra meat left over, feel free to share. If you're cooking something with a lot of grease and oils and it's been cooked, not so good for them. But most veggies are going to be really good, and just start experimenting and see what they like.
Yeah, I like that because, like you mentioned earlier as well, just fry up some mushrooms or a handful of blueberries or something. I think
Yep.
it's pretty. It's
Yep.
not too overwhelming. Not for me anyway. Just to
Yeah.
say, I have them anyway. Let's just toss those in. I think I like that.
Listen, one of my dogs would steal bags of carrots out of the barns from the
Oh,
horses. He would just take the bag of carrots and run off with it and sit there and eat carrots all day. So,
I love that. Oh my goodness, that's wonderful. I just love that idea of just feeding your dogs carrots. That's
it's
wonderful.
a great treat.
It is. It's an awesome treat. I love that. How we've talked about the website. Can you share that? And I'll add it to the description. But where can our listeners get that information for future
So
reference?
we're at naturallyhealthypets.com. And our social media, we're pretty much on every platform, and it's under Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets. Tons of free information, tons of free downloads. So, our whole goal is to educate people. And so we try to offer as many free resources as available. And my books are all available. I'm working on book number 10. They're all available on Amazon.
That is amazing. Those are great books to have. Yeah, absolutely. I'll make sure to add all those links in the description box so people can refer to. So I want to thank you so much. I could keep you on for so much longer, but I do appreciate you taking the time and giving us some great information. But before we wrap up, I do ask my guests this question, and I can't remember if I warned you about it, but I do ask, what would you like to be when you grow up?
Oh, what do I want to be when I grow up?
When you grow up, yeah.
Oh, that is actually a really good question. And I'm kind of working my way into it, but I just want to be a complete homesteader.
I love that.
I'm
Oh,
already
yeah.
doing a lot of it, but
I love that. Yeah, I love asking that question. I don't ask children that question. I find that limiting to them. But for adults, we are continuously growing. We're still, evolving, and we think that, once we're out of high school, we're done. But there's still stuff going on there. So
no,
I
it's
like
it's
that.
always changing. I mean, I would like to be someone who gives back more. Um, And so one of the things that we raise all our own vegetables. We have dairy cows, we have chickens for meat and for eggs. And so we share that with as many people as we can. So giving back and helping train other people is pretty important to us.
I love that. Yeah, homesteading is definitely a long-term goal for me as well, just to go back and be as self-sufficient as I can be. But it's just
Yep.
I love working in the garden. I love working.
Yeah.
So it's when I want to avoid the rest of the work, that's where I am. So I
And
am
then you
all
know what you're
for it.
eating and it's all organic.
Exactly, exactly. You know exactly where it's been. So I love that.
Yep.
Well, thank you for playing along. I really like to ask that question, but so I really do appreciate you coming on. It was great talking to you, and I do invite all the listeners to go have a look at the website so they can get more. So again, don't forget to have a look at the description box for that exclusive discount that Dr. Judy has generously shared with us. So if there's anything on her website that calls out to you and your pet, be sure to include that discount to get 50% off your order. Thank you so much. You're more than welcome to come back anytime. We'd love to have
Thank
you on
you.
again. Thank you again. And for everybody listening or watching, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to whichever channel you're listening or watching from. Don't forget to go check out Dr. Judy's angles as well, her social media, so you can follow. And until next time, stay safe, stay awesome, and we'll talk soon.